Hello viewers, this is Major General Neelendra Kumar for the YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation for my playlist in Se Miliye, in conversation with Sikyong Penpa Tsering, who he had, by the way, earlier in his career taken part in Tibetan freedom movement while he was in the college, and prior to becoming Sikyong, in May 21, he was runner-up in the 2016 election, and I had earlier told you that the voters for this election, they are from 30 different countries, and the turnout was more than 72%. My next question is that it would be interesting to know as to what is the attitude, the level of interest amongst the Tibetan youth today, world over. Of course, large number are in India also, with regard to your cause. Do they feel personally connected? Are they sort of passionately involved, or you have a sense of apprehension that perhaps they are drifting away?
I would say overall, taking into consideration the situation over the decades, I would say present day youth are more well informed than our generation.
They're better informed?
Better informed. Because when we were growing up, till grade 6, you know that I was born in Karnataka in a place called Balakupi, which was the first settlement that came into being because His Holiness visited India in 56-57 during the Buddha Jayanti and met with Nijalingappa, and they became friends. And when Pandit Nehru asked the chief ministers who would be willing to provide land for Tibetan refugee rehabilitation, Karnataka was the first.
Nijalingappa was the first?
Nijalingappa was the first to offer 3,000 acres of land for 3,000 Tibetans, where I was born. So when I had never traveled outside Balakupi till I was in grade 10. So we never had that much exposure. There was no television. The only thing was radio, and of course we don't understand all that Hindi when we were younger. So the exposure was very low. But then again, we were privileged to hear stories about Tibet from our parents because they had just come out. And the memories were very fresh. Our neighbors who had gone through similar experiences or sufferings. So that thinking was very much instilled in us. Particularly my father used to say, when you grow up, when you get educated, you will have to serve His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You will have to serve the Tibetan cause. And you were asking me a question earlier. At those days, our dream was just to be close to His Holiness. My dream was maybe I'll become a bodyguard so that I can be, close to His Holiness. But then fate has its own, destiny has its own way of working out. So now I'm in this position. So from that generation to now, of course, the generation who were a little elder to me, those who were born in India from the early 60s, they were also very passionate. The ones who came from Tibet also were very passionate at one time in the 70s and 80s when the Tibetan Youth Congress was formed, Tibetan Women's Association was formed. So they played a very active role within the Tibetan diaspora community in terms of protests, organizing protests and, petitioning and all that. So this generation, even if you look at my generation, in the mid-90s, I became a member of parliament in 96. Even when I became a member of parliament, I was not that well informed about what was going on inside Tibet because the situation was very opaque and, people were just coming out of Tibet. And then there were times that we could meet with them and understand what they were going through. And they could also learn how we grew up. Those issues were there. Now, at the present time, now since 2008, when there was large-scale demonstration in Tibet, in all parts of Tibet, participated by people from all walks of life, I saw a huge gathering of Tibetans, particularly younger generation in Jantar Mantar, more than 3,000
at Jantar Mantar.
At Jantar Mantar. So that was I think
Very encouraging.
very encouraging sign that youngsters are now getting, now with all the information, even though China is still very opaque, we still get information out, and there are now a lot more institutions studying China, a lot more analysis are coming out than earlier. So all this is also impacting the Tibetan community, and we make it a point to one of the opportunity was we talked about the dispersing compact communities. At the same time, they are getting dispersed to various countries, and they are young. They become nationals there. They become they understand the language. They understand the system. Now, if they understand a little more about what's happening globally, and in China and in Tibet, then they could be the best advocates for Tibet.
Yes.
So we have started this program called International Youth Forum, where we invite 100 Tibetan youths every year to Dharamsala for leadership courses, and then we also organize regional meetings in Australia, in Europe, different places, in North America, different places, to empower them to be able to be the best advocate for Tibet.
Okay.
So it's quite encouraging to find that more than 550 young Tibetans have joined this initiative, which is global in nature.
And as you said, 100 come every year.
Years.
Yes.
And if we do that for 10 years,
Yes.
we'll have 1,000 leaders, and most
Yes.
of them are now between the age of 20 to 30. And if they live for another 40, 50 years, so we have leadership for the next 40, 50 years. So that is, as His Holiness keeps saying, and I think every community have this saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yes.
So hope for the best that we'll get to go back to Tibet under some circumstances, and prepare for the worst, that even if we have to struggle for another 30, 40, 50 years down the line, it's incumbent upon the present leadership to prepare the future leadership for their responsibility.
Thank you very much. You have seen that Sikyong has very well articulated his ideas with regard to the involvement of Tibetan youth for the cause of Tibet, and he has been very frank in this regard. Stay with us. This conversation will continue. Thank you.